Hello, my name is Caitlin Bates. I'm a landscape architecture student, and this is my project, City in Nature and Field of Streams. Detroit, often known as the Motor City, saw great success during industrialization. Built on the banks of the Detroit River, the city became an important hub for shipping and manufacturing. The economic success led to the expansion of the suburbs, altering the landscape and setting in motion problems the city continues to face today. Before settlement, the land Detroit was built on was low-lying and wet. Wetlands lined the river, and further inland consisted of wet prairie and forest. After settlement and industrialization, the land was permanently altered. Creeks were placed in pipes, and wetlands were drained to make room for roads, houses, and businesses. What was once a vibrant, diverse ecosystem has been reduced to small fragments along the fringes of the city. The combination of all of these activities has had a major impact on the city and its residents. Due to the high amounts of impervious surfaces, there is more runoff entering the storm drains, and Detroit's sewer system is an old combined system, where sewage and stormwater share the same pipes and are taken to a water treatment facility plant to be cleaned before being returned to the Detroit River. These systems have a tendency to overflow during heavier rain events, and raw sewage can end up being released into the Detroit River or backing up into people's homes. Additionally, the urban heat island effect is increased due to the built-up nature and low tree canopy coverage, which can pose dangerous health risks to people. Due to the historical landscape of the area being marshy and wet, pockets of the city experience regular flooding, and our changing climate is only making things worse. Currently, Detroit receives 135 days of precipitation each year and 34 inches of rain on average. This is a 14% increase in precipitation since 1951. At the same time, the city experiences 13 extreme heat days where the temperature exceeds 90 degrees Fahrenheit each summer. This is 1.2 more days than in 1970. These trends are expected to continue, and by 2050, Detroit will be hotter and wetter. The Great Lakes region is warming at a faster rate than the rest of the country and could see average temperatures rise by 3 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit. By mid-century, Detroit could experience 30 to 65 extreme heat days each summer, a rapid increase compared to the last century. Warmer air will also contribute to higher precipitation and heavier storms. Severe storms are expected to increase in frequency more quickly than storms that are less intense, bringing with them more water, and some estimates predict that heavy rain events of 1 inch or more could increase by 24 to 40 days each decade. This could spell disaster for the city as large flood events become more frequent. Flooding is a financial strain on the city and its residents. In less than 10 years, Detroit has experienced 2 500-year floods and an additional 4 major flood events that have caused billions of dollars in damages. On top of that, 43% of residents report experiencing recurrent flooding even during more moderate rain events. With current climate predictions, large flood events are expected to happen more often, which could cause people to abandon their homes and leave the city. Another hit to Detroit's shrinking population. From 2000 to 2022, Detroit's population has decreased by a little over 327,000 people, a decline that's been persistent for the past 60 years. This diminished population has left Detroit with a high vacancy rate, miles of vacant land, and thousands of blighted properties. Nearly 1 in 5 houses sits vacant, and of the 143 square miles that Detroit covers, roughly 23 square miles of it is considered vacant. This number doesn't include parcels that still have buildings on them and unmaintained city parks. In some areas, entire blocks are empty, and once vibrant, connected communities have been degraded and disconnected. Residents also lack access to parks and the waterfront. High-quality parks that do exist are clustered near the downtown area and would require a personal vehicle or walking a great distance for many people. Even for parks located in residential areas along the riverfront, it requires crossing Jefferson Avenue, something that is unpleasant and possibly dangerous for some. Another barrier to access. So what can we do? In order to address the many issues discussed, a citywide strategy must be implemented for maximum change. To start, we will look at the areas near the riverfront as Phase 1 and be referred to as the Riverfront Corridor. This area consists of everything from Jefferson Chalmers in the east down to Zug Island in the west, and bounded by Jefferson Avenue to the east of downtown and Fort Street to the west of downtown. Along this corridor, there are many opportunities to improve existing parks, as well as build additional spaces that can increase connectivity, stormwater capture, and urban habitat. the riverfront corridor can be divided into zones. The eastern end is predominantly residential, while the western end is largely industrial, and the central portion consists of the urban core and transitional space that heads towards the residential zones. In these spaces, we can look for opportunity areas, places that can be modified or removed, like old parking lots, vacant lots, open lawns, and old sports fields. We can also look at existing parks to see if they should be modified in any way, like removing deteriorating infrastructure or changing the topology of the land. In all of these different spaces, new features can be added that can provide a variety of benefits. For residents and visitors, new social spaces can be built, like plazas and playgrounds. Boardwalks can be built and new public beaches can replace sections of seawall, allowing people to get closer to the water and open up new recreational opportunities. Some areas may not be suitable for public access, but can still provide environmental and economic benefits. Wetlands and woodlands can be constructed around industrial properties to act as a buffer and to slow contaminated water from ending up in storm drains or into the river. Phase 2 would be to extend out into the rest of the city, creating a trail network that resembles the historic streams that once flowed through the area. The pathways would be somewhat depressed, similar to an artificial stream bed, and would allow for the capture of stormwater during rain events. This will give the water time to be absorbed into the ground instead of becoming runoff that ends up in the storm system. All along the trail network, vacant land can be used to create these green corridors. Existing parks can be connected to the system and new parks can be added. In lower vacancy areas, community program will be prioritized. Event space can be built for things like block parties, food trucks, and markets, and smaller community parks for outdoor recreation. In areas of high vacancy where there is large amounts of land available, urban forests can be planted. The forest can be used for lumber production and with the right tree species can be used for soil remediation as well. An expanded tree canopy can also help with reduce the urban heat island effect and air pollution, something Detroit residents greatly need. In areas where available land is limited, such as in areas with low vacancy or no vacancy, the corridors can connect to existing sidewalks and the surrounding streetscapes can be improved. Where possible, swales can be installed and new street trees can be planted. Pocket parks can be added and can act as resting points along the route. All new routes will terminate either at an existing park or a newly constructed park and will begin to reconnect communities that have become separated over time. This strategy provides the framework for further improvement opportunities throughout the city. New businesses and housing can be focused around the network, and more walkable communities mean people will become less car dependent. Along the riverfront corridor, empty and abandoned buildings can be removed entirely or converted into new housing. These changes will help revive the riverfront and make it a place for residents to enjoy. Additionally, the Detroit Riverwalk will become more than a wide sidewalk next to the river. It will become a pedestrian highway connecting neighborhoods to businesses, existing parks to new parks, and bringing people back to the water. Through a variety of interventions, Detroit can become a more climate resilient city that's greener, more connected, and cleaner. Thank you for listening.